Welcome back to another episode of the
Turn Up, sponsored, brought to you by Grape Roots, Season 4, Episode 4. Welcome back. I think we've been off about 2 weeks, so we're back. It's going to be a great week because it is spring break. When kids have spring break, that means daddy has spring break. So looking forward to the week of not doing anything except everything in the garden. So.
Oh yeah, and speaking of spring break, if you guys have somewhere you need your kids to come to and learn and work during spring break, bring them out here to Grape Roots. Farmer Mac will put them to work.
Oh yeah, we've had I think 2 weekends we had kids over and they brought their forms because here in Atlanta the kids need 75 hours of community service a year towards their graduation. So they bring their forms and come out here, work and enjoy in the garden. So like, why do you want to go to a beach, Disney World stuff when you could be out here in Grape Roots? So. And
grow fresh vegetables.
Yes. Which we're having a difficult time starting off, but we're gonna get there. So we worked this past weekend. We are reconfiguring for the 6th year in a row, reconfiguring our plot of land, 2 plots of lands. And we'll talk about that in episode 5. But yeah, we are looking forward to getting that built out, looking good and looking fresh. But without further ado, let's introduce our
special guest today.
Yes, I call her my niece. You know, her mom's my best friend. We've been rocking together for over 40 years, and you're going to learn about a phenomenal individual, Corey Renee Anderson. You know, an astute high school athlete, and majored in 3 different types of engineering at LSU, and is really, as I call, betting on herself right now. So without further ado,
we have our special guest today, Corey
Anderson. Thank you for being here. This is a pleasure. It's really close to my heart. Corey is like a niece to me. I've known her since she was born, and seen her matriculate from a little tiny pup to the magnificent woman that she is now. So we're looking forward to talking to her on this different type of level. Yeah. I think, you know what, I'm still playing around with the title for this one, but I think is, what I say earlier was like...
I don't think you shared it with me.
I didn't.
You did not. I have no idea what your thoughts were in your head.
Oh, whatever. I'll figure it out through other things. So, but anyway, let's get to the meat of this. Corey, tell the world a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I'm a 25-year-old from Atlanta, Georgia, born and raised. I'm a bioengineer by trade, and I got my degree from LSU. I graduated 2020, started 2014. Don't do that math. So most people don't know, I started as a petroleum engineer. That's what I went in, and I hated it.
You speeding through that, like you just, I try to tell people I would do that because you're a very humble young lady or whatever. And some of the people are going to admit what you said. All right. So you matriculated from high school, was a phenomenal athlete.
She forgot all about
exactly. That. You just kind of a phenomenal athlete, a very smart individual, because people just don't get into LSU. Okay, and I don't know if y'all heard her. She went in LSU as a petroleum
y'all,
engineer,
gas engineer.
Stop.
I'm saying that's hard stuff.
Well, give us, what is that? What is that? Like, what made you from being a stellar athlete, student athlete in high school, to go to LSU to be in petroleum? Like, what were those steps to get you there?
Yeah, so a big factor in that was my stepdad, my late stepdad, Cabral Franklin. He identified early that I had a love for Legos and building furniture, helping him out around the house. So he was the one that was like, hey, look into this engineering. And then after that, it kind of just moved forward and forward. I fell in love with engineering. I visited LSU with my mom, fell in love with LSU. And from there, we just looked to see what was popular at LSU, where I could excel at. And petroleum at the time was that stopping point.
Okay. And what does that entail? Like, what is a petroleum? Because I'm an engineer by trade, and not until you started majoring that I never heard of that. So and I figured it makes you, I guess, down there, unless you'd have had that.
Yeah. It's basically pumping gas, doing upstream and downstream, meaning you're in charge of the process from pumping gas, and you can also be in charge of it from manufacturing. But it's all oil and gas. It's nothing else. Just pumping petroleum and getting into cars, that whole process.
Oh, now, so what made you pivot from petroleum? Because then you went from petroleum to what was the next engineering?
Engineering.
Yeah. I never would. You know, at Hampton we had two. We had Double E and we had Chemi. And I said, absolutely not. I will not do Chemi, and that's the best that's made when it comes to engineering.
Yes, all my friends told me the same thing. I wish I would have listened because it wasn't what I was expecting. I'm a Chemi minor and I love chemistry. If I were to go back to do college, I would do a double major in biology and Chemi with a minor in engineering. And so I did chemistry thinking that it's going to be like learning about the chemistry of the body in engineering. No counselor told me that, no, it's actually you're working in chemical factories and stuff. So I did that. And within the first semester, I was like, oh yeah, this isn't it. And that's when I finally switched to biological engineering. And I took my first ethical class and we learned about ethical playgrounds. We learned about ethical gardens and how that is entwined in engineering and nutrition, and how ethical gardens aren't really found in Black populations a lot in their neighborhoods. And that's when I fell in love with it. It was the combination of engineering, biology, and people.
So because you've used some terms I'm unfamiliar with. So what is an ethical garden?
So those are gardens that are set up in spaces that you know aren't going to be contaminated. They're set up just in regulations, basically. Because a lot of times you see some, especially here in Fort Myers, we saw, for example, there is a neighborhood down here, a Black population. They have a community gardens that are put on by the government, and they kind of help. But then they also have a part of that neighborhood where they are dumping. They were dumping, and it was contaminating the garden. And so that was an unethical garden in that sense.
Wow. Yeah.
I didn't know they had names for these things.
Yeah, because that's we are dealing with earlier we were talking about the kids that are coming on Wednesdays, and that's one of the things that we did when we first started, because our first plot is an old house used to be there. Mm-hmm. So when we were digging up the yard and prepping it for the garden, we found everything, clothes, toys, shoes, utilities, everything. So we did not know there. So we had to go to the University of Georgia extension office and get the soil tested to make sure, it wasn't contaminated, but it had enough of the phosphorus and other nutritional, not vitamins, but
just the nutrients the soil needs for, things to grow. Like we had to make sure that it had all of the minerals and, nutrients that would have things grow, and make sure it didn't have too much of something that would contaminate the food.
Exactly.
Now we know what to call it.
Yeah, so now we have an ethical garden.
We have an ethical, we got to make we're telling the kids we're doing an ethical garden. So we're going to teach the kids tomorrow. It's like, hey, we have an ethical garden. That means it is planted where not people are dumping, but we still got to test that soil, because there are 18-wheelers, because we're right next to a paper factory. So thank you for getting on our to-do list. Like, we don't have everything else to do. So
the good thing about being next to that paper factory, though, is paper is helpful for the nutrients in the soil.
Yes, but not if it's just trash. But that's another thing. So, yeah.
I do wonder, though, so Corey, when you finally figured out what your niche was at school, how did you see this playing out in a career? So I know we were talking earlier, and you actually graduated within this pandemic. And so 2 questions is, where did you see your major as a career? And then how has that possibly shifted since we've been in this pandemic graduated?
Yeah, so when I switched to bioengineering, I fell in love with pharmacology of it. So my career when I was graduating, I intended to go to grad school for pharmacology and work in medicine. And so graduating in COVID, things shifted. I ended up taking a gap year. And so I moved home, and that's when I kind of got my own home garden together in my mom's backyard. And that's when things like completely shifted. Being outside, working with my hands, and seeing bioengineering from that perspective, not working in a lab, but working outside and working with your hands. I was like, oh yeah, this is it. I can't be in a lab all day. I want to be outside. I want to be working with my hands, doing something that's really helping the community rather than, creating drugs. So that was the big shift for me.
That's interesting, because a lot of people you hear complain about the pandemic and what they were doing and what they're not doing, and it seems like you were able to spin that in a different way, kind of like what people do with internships. And I tell people all the time, doing engineering internship, you need to do co-ops and internships to realize what you don't want to do for the rest of your life. And that's interesting that you did that, so you were able to take the pandemic and do that and see what you didn't. Because I know that you were working a job. You weren't just out here just chilling, and you were working a job. It wasn't necessarily in your major, but it allows you to say, I am not this person. I am not a dad. I am not this type of person. And I see how you're marrying your community with your pharmacology. I just wanted to use that because y'all kept saying that. I don't even know if that was right.
That's what I was saying.
Did I say it right?
That's right.
Okay, good. So no. So yeah, tell us about that. Like, what was that aha moment that you had during this time that you didn't know that you were going to have, because we didn't know how long we were going to be in this?
Mm-hmm. So it wasn't I don't think it was just a moment, an instant thing. I think it was over the time. The more getting into it, the more learning about it. And it also was researching what I could professionally do. Because when I graduated in engineering, I had a certain point where I wanted to be financially and professionally. And so when I really made the switch, I really had to look and say, hey, can I be financially stable how I wanted to if I make this switch? So researching those jobs, and then ultimately researching and falling in love with cannabis cultivation was that spillover point. It was like, yeah, I could do this. This is my dream. And no matter how much money I make, I know I'm going to be happy doing this. So I think that was the biggest moment for me.
Oh, it's not like you're a millennial. We're talking like somebody's been around here before, whatever. Because we just don't hear that from individuals like that. Because how you said that you did exactly what most people do. Is like, I'm going to get this type of job because I want to have this type of lifestyle. I want to make this type of money. And it's usually not till you get older. Then you're like, you know what? Now I want to be satisfied in my career. I don't want a job. I want a career. And that's very interesting. And kudos to you that you were able to do that in your mid-20s, and that, money is not. It's more about the happiness and what you can do. So you mentioned cannabis. Tell us more. Like, what are you just, you're just growing it in the backyard, or like, what do you need? I don't know.
That's
okay.
I don't think
okay. I'm trying to catch y'all up. I'm trying to catch y'all up. Yeah, where can I find this?
You're in the beds right now.
Snitching. Yeah, expound on for the listeners. Like, what do you mean?
Mm-hmm. So right now, I'm currently in Florida where it's legal, and right here, I'm down here doing some training, doing some classes, even trying to get some hands-on training. And I'm doing that because this is a big wave, and pharmacology and plants meet at cannabis for me. That is a medical plant that I think I could get behind 100%. And so that's a switch. Reason I made the switch. And right now I'm just learning. Being in Georgia and being from Georgia, there's not a lot of learning opportunities. So I'm having to get out of state and learn. And I'm currently applying for jobs in cannabis cultivation. So everyone, fingers crossed. And yeah, so I'm at the beginning of my cannabis cultivation career, we can say today.
Classes are you taking?
Mm-hmm. Right now I'm taking online classes.
Okay, when you mean cannabis cultivation, right?
It's doing the classes I'm taking are cannabis cultivation, also extraction class. And so that's just extracting the THC and the CBD from the plant. Because in my dream, I would love to have a cannabis cultivation facility in Georgia, along with an extraction facility. Because being a bioengineer, I'm good at extraction. I feel like I could take the lab sense on too.
I think it's important you mentioned you didn't want to work with the drugs on the back end. It sounded like you were more interested in helping the community from a preventative standpoint. Is that what you would say where you are now?
Yeah, I think so. More holistic. I'd say more holistic choices, more manageable pain choices. I think that especially for women in their menstrual cycle, I know women that have to take 800 milligrams every 6 hours for a week. And I think that is just not plausible. There are many medical marijuana patches and things you can take to take away that pain without destroying your liver on ibuprofen. So things like that are what I really tackle.
Yeah, I was about to say, I was like, she's talking directly.
She's talking to me.
Oh, wow. Interesting. I didn't know anything about that or the direction this would go. I know that you were into that cultivation, but to be honest, I know nothing about that and extraction. And I see, people are selling the CBD and the other stuff, the THC. I don't know the difference or whatever. So this is very interesting. And like I said, I want to learn at the same time that our listeners are learning too. So that is very, very interesting that that's what you want to do. But so if you said your dream would be to have a lab with that. So now are you managing this lab or you are going to actually do this yourself? You're doing the scientific, or like where do you see yourself in it?
I see myself owning it. I see myself having a lab manager and a cultivation manager that's running it, but I'm working up to that. But in the meantime, yes, I plan on getting my hands dirty right now and working at an entry-level cannabis job to really learn and then build up from there.
5 years old.
She wants to do the work.
She wants to do the work. And then she says, entry level, I just want to learn the work. She's studying, she's researching. She's left Georgia to go down to Florida where it is legal and she can find it and take a class. This, I don't even know who I'm talking to right now. This is, you're different, Corey. You are different though. I hope people are really paying attention to what they're talking to. Like I said, she is only 25 years old and she's doing this. So this is outstanding. Damn, I'm wasting some time.
I think it sounds like you found your passion, right? Like I tell people the best thing to know a lot of times is what you don't want to do, right? Like, so you've had all these opportunities up until now, like, I don't want to do petroleum engineering. I don't want to do chemical engineering. I don't want to be in a lab. I don't want to be in a building. I want to be outside. I want to be with you've learned all these things, experiences. And I think sometimes when you're working with young people, especially your generation, they don't want to actually go through those experiences to learn what they don't like, to get to the point where they can learn the craft and then develop their own business and entrepreneurial, opportunities. And so I think us here at Grape Roots really appreciate you being on here to give this perspective, especially at your age, because we have a lot of people who are young, like you, or even younger, that are looking to go into entrepreneurship roles, but don't want to do the work.
I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be a business person. I want to run a company. I was like, what you going to do? Just run a company or whatever. So, yeah. And I, like I said, since I've known you since birth, and I know there's been a lot of people that have poured into you. And now I see, and they see the fruit of their labor, pun intended. So, but great that you are able to do that. And that's why I'm a big proponent of college, because you will get to find out who you are in college. And people is like, oh, it costs money, you're throwing money away. No, college is not like it used to be when I was going to college. And you can pick and choose what you want to do. And she's just fortunate because when Corey would come home and, her mom would be in the front room having a holiday party, but we'd be in the front office working on, I don't even know what it was, but they got to a level where I was like, yep, this is me right here. I could not. But she is such a brilliant person in math, but for her to be able to take that pivot and be able to lower, because yes, Corey, you already know you could be making big money in engineering.
I know.
Intelligent and bright as you are, but for you to humble yourself is like, no, I got bigger plans. Delayed gratification is something that speaks up to you as an individual. Mm-hmm. So where do you see your next, like what in the next year? So a year from now, we're like, where are they now? Where will they see Corey Anderson? What is your vision to have from March 2023? Where are you?
A year from now, I would hope to have been fully trained in that year to really know what I've been doing and hopefully go above the entry level and be in a manager position or either. And then I also am working on the side, working on just a little gardening company, a side company with my dad, trying to figure out exactly where we want to go with that. So in a year, I'm hoping to be in my cannabis cultivation career, not entry level, but really knowing what I'm doing. And also having a running business on the side that I could lean on to just in case.
You know, is there certain, you saying the learning now, is there some type of cultivation certification that's required?
There's not one required. And unfortunately, currently, because the cannabis, to get a license is so hard right now, a lot of these companies are family companies and it's hard to break into them. So there aren't any official certifications, but going online and doing a online certification or doing a hands-on certification goes a long way. It's not official, but it will bump you up because it is hard to break into that field.
So when you're doing these job interviews, what are they looking for? Since this is such a new field, like what are they looking for, even on the entry level? Like what are some of the things that they've asked you or you've experienced on these interviews?
So horticulture experience is important, or experience working on land and actually gardening is very, very important. And that's the biggest thing they're looking for. Some are looking for bachelor degrees, but all of that, if you have experience, that's really what you need. Just that experience. Mm-hmm.
So I guess you having your home garden and then doing this gardening also with your father is going to be helpful for your background getting into the cannabis arena and area.
Yes, exactly.
So tell us a little bit, because we did skip over this, about your little home garden.
Oh, our home garden. So that is a little pet project. I like to say me and my family are doing it. They aren't too active, but we're going to get them there. So it's thanks for my mom for really pushing it and funding it. It's a 2 garden bed garden. We are adding pots. We're adding an herb garden this year. We are even doing, I think we did 36 tomato starters. So we're even going to plant a lot of tomatoes and then fan it out to friends and family and hopefully get some friends and family started on the trend. And yeah, it's just the home garden has turned into a kind of paradise. We have lemon bushes that we're working on, Japanese maple trees that we really are falling in love with and learning how to take care of. And so I think that's important. Your home garden is where it starts. That's where you can really have fun. You play and you see, what you can do.
And like I said, Corey and her younger sister have come out, 2 great roots, and has been helping us over the past couple of years. And even though we posted our little movie, they were over here planning with Tasha, was about a month or so ago. Mm-hmm. So like I said, everything you've heard Corey talk about, she is in the dirt. So she's not talking about it, she's being about it. And like I said, and I can't wait to go back down there to your father's. Like he is one of the most phenomenal gardens I have seen. What is it? It's on 3 acres, and it is exotics type of stuff I wish we could grow here. But like I said, when you getting that Fort Myers sun, I mean, that's different. He's doing it different, and hopefully, fingers crossed with that, we'll be able to continue our conversation and have him on so he can talk more about that too. So, but I know he has to be proud of you, seeing you being, it has to be a special moment to be able to work with your father like that. You have the same interest in to build, because I know y'all company is going to be uber successful because y'all two different individuals, but 2 very intelligent individuals on different wavelengths that is going to make this thing phenomenal. So that's what I can't wait. So we can do some collaboration with Grape Roots. Y'all start sending stuff up here. So we up next though. We up next. We first in line. So don't forget about us.
I do have so since you have technically a home garden here in Georgia with your mom and like a home garden in Florida with your dad, what are the major
differences? So this, like Malcolm said, Fort Myers sun is like 12 hours of sun. So the things you can grow, you have mango trees down here that are doing amazing that we probably never really do in Georgia. Just beautiful mango trees, these exotic fruits, these fruits I've never seen, like star fruits, like stars and just stuff I don't even know the name of. So it's just the things you can grow and the length you can grow them. It's like my dad's just been experimenting. The turnips are this big around. It's super amazing. And he has so much space. It makes you want to just do boxes. I just want to go home and put 10 more boxes in the backyard.
When I went down there, we was down there for baseball, my son's baseball, so I got to go. That's why I got to go to the garden. I saw that. I was so jealous. I'm like, look at all this stuff, man. Every day I come back to our garden, I was like, hey, man, we got to cut all these trees down. I need sun. I need 12 hours of sun. Stat.
Now, do you down there have to do anything special? Because it sounds like you have like perfect gardening and growing conditions. But with the sun, do you find yourself like watering more, or do you have to do more with the soil to keep it moist? Like I know here in Georgia, because we have so many trees, sometimes our soil stays more moist than other areas, even though like you get one without the other, we get the moist soil, but then no sun, right? So what are the things you have to like compensate for in Florida?
So one thing my dad did on his plot of land was he planted trees on either side of, it was the east side and the other side, to make sure that it's 12 hours. So 12 hours isn't necessarily a good thing. There's a lot of things burning. So he put those trees up to kind of give it a buffer. So it's more 8 to 9 hours. So that's one thing that is good. Sun is great, but too much sun will burn everything up. So that's something he did. He waters 3 times a day as well. The morning, afternoon, yeah, right when the sun's about to go down.
It's a well. He has a well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he also has hydroponics that everything he has is self-watering, which is something I'm definitely doing in my home gardening because it just makes sense. So everything he has is self-watering. So it's all on a timer. But definitely have to 3 days a week for sure. I mean, 3 times a day for sure.
Wow.
We need self-watering.
Yeah, we did have that, but it was an epic fail on our irrigation system was good, but it never worked. It never worked. You know, more money back. It's all good though.
We got to start over.
Yes, we got to start over. I'm glad you mentioned that too, because that's what we're telling the kids that we have on Wednesdays. I said, I know you're in school, but I'll do this. I'll do a sun map for you all, because right now, as you're learning, sun goes from the east to the west, but we're in the beginning of spring where the leaves aren't there. So you have to be careful where you plant the ones that need more time in the sun versus the ones, leafy greens, that prefer a cooler weather. So we would plant those closer to the east where the trees are. So the sun is not going to really hit them until it gets past like 1 o'clock. So, and that's one of the things, like for the kids, we're trying to learn stuff like that. And just how you mentioned that, it's like people just put up gardens willy-nilly, but you have to do that work it's just, you can't start planting everywhere too. And I'm glad you made that point. It's like, sun is good, but it's not always good.
Mm-mm. Yeah. Most important part, planting your garden. What biggest thing I've learned.
That again.
That's it.
You gotta plan. What to plant, when to plant it, where's the best place to put it. Like, you gotta make a plan.
Sounds fantastic plan that you have out for your life. We can, as we say every week, we wish we could continue this conversation. But hopefully, like I said, we'll come back next year. Where are they now? And you have everything that you never even knew that you wanted. And putting the work in, and I think you're an inspiration to people that's your age, that you're not looking for the quick fix, but you're willing to put in that work for a good cause. So we really appreciate you being on here, and look forward to hearing more about you in the coming year.
Yeah, when you get your company.
Thanks for having me, y'all. This was fun.
Oh, you're great, fantastic. We out.